I wanted to have another video where we talk about content ID and how it relates to fair use. So one thing that I've been seeing a lot on YouTube very recently, in fact, is a lot of bigger YouTubers who are complaining about what they think are bad content ID claims. Now, I understand this. Everyone likes to complain about content ID, and the system is in fact not perfect. But I think that a lot of people may misunderstand what could be theoretically a valid content ID, what is a flaw of the system, and what is just a completely illegitimate claim. I'm seeing a lot of YouTubers who are complaining about content ID claims that it makes sense why they're being picked up in the system, and it's really a disagreement between the YouTuber's understanding and the copyright holders. Something that gets mentioned a lot in these discussions is fair use. And the problem is that as an automated system, by definition, content ID cannot assess fair use. That is something that whenever there is a match in the system, the copyright holder needs to assess that. So as I mentioned, there are several YouTubers who have been talking about this recently, but there's one who had a video very recently, I want to say 2 days ago, who really should know better because he has, perhaps of any YouTuber on the site, actual experience with the fair use process because he has actually gone through the court system and a judge has said this is fair use. I am talking about Papa Bless H3H3. H3H3 has a recent video, a series of videos entitled KFC Blocks Our Video. And so it seems that what happened is KFC made some sort of viral ad, and the entire point was to get YouTubers to talk about this ad, but as soon as people use clips from this ad in their videos, the videos were matched in content ID and the policy was set to block. If you haven't watched H3H3's video, I highly encourage watching it because he highlights some of the things that I think are very important in this case and how content ID works in generally. However, I think that what we can learn from this is how complicated the system is. So he points out that brands like KFC will typically have their copyright be managed by some other party. And I think that the copyright claim came from some other group. I'll try to put in a screenshot of that other group there. And when he tweeted about this, that other group reached out to him saying, oh, this was YouTube's issue. YouTube blocked this content. H3H3, I think, accurately and fairly points out that YouTube doesn't really do anything. What YouTube does is provide a series of tools by which, if content is matched, then whoever is managing the content ID system can then say, if X% of content is matched as part of this video, then do this. If it's, part of this video, then do that. And so there's lots of things that a content creator can experience. It could be that the monetization is taken over. It could be that the audio is muted in some or all countries. It could be that the video is blocked in some or all countries. So H3H3 correctly points out that for his video to be blocked was a conscious decision by someone in this company, whether it's KFC's decision or whether it's whoever is representing them in the content ID system. And so he correctly notes that for this claimant to claim ignorance is a little bit shady. But there's something that he mentions that I think is a little premature. What a lot of these creators are mentioning is that they think that it's fair use and therefore it should not be claimed at all, or that there should be no block. And the problem with this is that fair use is a legal defense. There are standards legally for what fair use entails. There's several factors that get tested, but the ultimate people who get to decide that are judges in court cases. And so without a court case, we don't know what is fair use. We can look at other cases and see, are the fact patterns similar enough so that will probably be assessed the same way if a judge looked at it, or is it different enough that there could be other factors? Now, the reason why I say H3H3 is special is because he is one of, I don't know how many YouTubers, a very, very small number, who actually has gone to court. I'm gonna totally ruin this guy's name. H3H3 was sued by some guy, Hassan Zada, because Hassan Zada said, your criticism video, your dissing video, whatever H3H3 had done, he thought it was infringement and that, it should be taken down. And when H3H3 went to court, there's now legal cases, there's now legal writing talking about how H3H3's commentary was in fact a fair use. So H3H3 knows this process. He knows what it's like to go through this legal process, and that full legal process was necessary to come to a conclusion on fair use. Without that legal process, we're just guessing. We're just assuming what can we take in from other cases to say what is fair use or what is not fair use? I think one thing that is important to note is that before issuing a takedown, the copyright holder should assess fair use. And so we do have case law saying that even if the copyright holder disagrees, they at least have to go through the process of assessing fair use. And so I think there is an open question. Is that happening in these automatic content ID claims? If a copyright holder or their representatives in content ID can say, if you find this clip, automatically block it, then is an accurate fair use assessment occurring? Now, ideally with a content ID claim, it's just about identification. It identifies and then the copyright holder reviews and decides what happens. But because content ID does allow people to set automatic consequences, that means that theoretically, there may not be a human review. That is why in the appeals process, the dispute process, that's important because that should represent a human from the copyright holder assessing that claim. Let me be clear and say that again. That represents a human from the copyright holder assessing that claim. A lot of people are confused. They think that it's YouTube assessing the claim, and it's not. YouTube is not involved in this process because they don't know who has permission, who has a license, and therefore they cannot assess whether something is properly licensed or whether something had permission. It's up to the copyright holders, and what YouTube does is it provides a way for copyright holders to assess when their content may be used. But it's ultimately up to the copyright holders. So a lot of people say this is fair. What if the copyright holder disagrees? That is why fair use can only be determined in court. Up until a court case, it's just he said, she said between the YouTuber and the copyright holder. So if the copyright holder is set on their criteria for fair use and you disagree with them, then you have to escalate that further. And that's what leads to a court case. And then a judge will look at all the factors, will look at all the content, what has been used, what has been changed, what has been modified, and then they will come to their own conclusion. I think the takeaway here is that fair use is a very expensive thing to use. It's not like a get out of jail free card. It's not a get out of copyright infringement free card because the copyright holder doesn't have to agree with you. And to actually ensure that you can use fair use rights, you have to be willing and able to risk a court case and be able to pay the lawyers and be able to go through that entire process and do that. Now, H3H3, as I mentioned before, he's done this already once before. So he knows from his own experience with his other case what fair use sort of entails, but he should also know that it does involve that legal aspect. So I think that what he's trying to do, which is also fair to do, is these companies, they don't necessarily want bad press either. They don't want to have to go to court if they don't have to. And so by raising awareness into the court of public opinion, social media, YouTube videos, that sort of thing, then these sorts of content creators and YouTubers can raise awareness for an issue without necessarily going through the legal channels. And groups like KFC will have to decide whether their copyright administrators are doing what they wanted to be done, or if they're being overly strict in managing their copyright presence on YouTube. So it'll be very fascinating to see where this case goes. I don't know if it'll become a court case. Probably what will happen is that behind the scenes, KFC and whoever's representing their copyright on YouTube will have some sort of internal talk about allowing more content creators to use these ads, which are quite frankly designed to be discussed by YouTubers. And so it would seem prudent that YouTubers should be able to discuss them. But that's going to be something that KFC will have to have with their lawyers, with the people who are managing their copyright. So if there's any other questions about content ID and fair use, I plan on having several other series and several other videos featuring other YouTubers because this is an issue that keeps coming time and time again. And if a YouTuber is actually using the content from another third party, then yes, a claim could theoretically be fair. And if there is fair use involved, that's something that comes later down the process. So if you have any questions on this, please leave them in the comment below. If you have any other cases from other YouTubers that you think, hey, this is just not fair, let's discuss, and maybe I'll make another video about that. Thanks. Bye.